Welcome back to our journey through the sands of time. Today, we delve into the story of a forgotten king, a military man who rose from the ranks to become the savior of Egypt, a pharaoh who literally rewrote history to restore order. This is the incredible story of Horemheb. Imagine Egypt in turmoil. The Amarna heresy, a radical religious revolution led by the pharaoh Akhenaten, had shaken the kingdom to its core. His successor, the boy king Tutankhamun, tried to restore the old ways, but his reign was short. Then came the elderly vizier, A, who held the throne for a mere 4 years. As A's life drew to a close, Egypt found itself teetering on a precipice. The royal bloodline, the sacred lineage that had guided the nation for centuries, was all but extinct. The gods seemed to have fallen silent, and the people yearned for a leader, for stability, for a return to the divine order, the mat. Into this power vacuum stepped a man unlike any pharaoh before him. A man of common birth, forged not in the palace, but on the battlefield. His name was Horemheb, the commander-in-chief of the armies of Egypt. He had served under Tutankhamun and a powerful and respected figure who had spent years defending Egypt's borders. While the court was consumed by intrigue and succession crises, Horemheb was leading Egypt's soldiers, earning their unwavering loyalty. When news of A's death reached him, Horemheb returned from his campaigns to find the throne empty and the nation leaderless. He saw a country fractured by religious dissent and weakened by political instability. But where others saw chaos, Horemheb saw an opportunity, a divine calling. He possessed no royal blood, no direct claim to the throne through ancestry. What he had was the absolute loyalty of the most powerful institution in the land, the army. And in a time of crisis, that was more than enough. With the backing of his soldiers, Horemheb made his move. He marched to Thebes, the religious heart of Egypt. There, in a masterful display of political and religious theater, he claimed his right to rule. The official narrative, which he would later carve into stone for all eternity, was that the god Amun himself had chosen him, presenting him to the people as their rightful king. The oracle of Amun proclaimed his destiny, and with the army securing the capital, who would dare to argue? Horemheb placed the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt upon his head. He was no longer just a general. He was the pharaoh, the living Horus, the embodiment of divine authority. His reign had begun, not through birthright, but through sheer force of will and divine purpose. Horemheb knew that to truly stabilize Egypt, he couldn't just rule, he had to heal the nation's soul. And to do that, he needed to erase the wound that had been inflicted upon it. The Amarna period, with its worship of the single god Amun, was seen as a time of heresy, a dark stain on Egypt's sacred history. So, Horemheb began one of the most ambitious and ruthless campaigns of historical revisionism ever attempted. He declared war on memory itself. His primary targets were the pharaohs associated with the Amarna heresy. Akhenaten, the original heretic king, was the first to be purged. Horemheb's workers descended upon the city of Amarna, dismantling its temples and palaces stone by stone. The name Akhenaten was chiseled out of every monument, every inscription, every public record. It was a systematic effort to make it as though he had never existed. But Horemheb didn't stop there. He also targeted Akhenaten's immediate successors. Even the celebrated Tutankhamun, the boy king who had begun the process of restoring the old gods, was not spared. Because he was the son of Akhenaten, his connection to the heresy was undeniable. His name, too, was erased. And finally, Horemheb turned his attention to his own predecessor, A. Horemheb usurped many of A's monuments, recarving A's name and image with his own. In the eyes of history, as Horemheb was now writing it, the throne had passed directly from Amenhotep III, the last great king, before the heresy straight to Horemheb himself. The nearly 30-year span of Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, and A was to be wiped from the annals of time, reduced to a forgotten, nameless void. Why such a drastic measure? Horemheb understood that for the Egyptian people, their history was their identity. Their pharaohs were living gods, and the line of succession was a sacred chain linking the present to the divine past. By erasing the heretics, Horemheb wasn't just punishing them, he was purifying the historical record. He was restoring the unbroken line of orthodox rule, ensuring that future generations would see only a continuous, divinely ordained succession of pharaohs loyal to the traditional pantheon, led by the great god Amun. It was a bold, audacious move to seize control not just of Egypt's future, but of its past as well. With the memory of the heretics purged, Horemheb turned his attention to rebuilding the state. His reforms were sweeping and designed to last. As a military man, he valued order, discipline, and efficiency above all else. His first priority was restoring the power and wealth of the traditional priesthood of Amun, which had been sidelined under Akhenaten. He initiated massive building projects, restoring the temples that had fallen into disrepair and constructing new, magnificent additions to the great complexes at Karnak and Luxor. He filled the priesthood with former army officers, men he could trust, men who owed their new, prestigious positions directly to him. This move cleverly ensured that the powerful temple network was now loyal to the state and to him personally. Next, Horemheb tackled corruption. Decades of instability had led to widespread abuses of power by local officials. Soldiers were taking advantage of civilians, and tax collectors were enriching themselves at the expense of the people. Horemheb issued a great edict, a series of laws carved on a stela at Karnak for all to see. These laws set out harsh punishments for corruption, including beatings, exile, and even the cutting off of an offender's nose. He reformed the local judiciary, appointing 2 chief justices, one for Upper Egypt and one for Lower Egypt, to oversee a fair and efficient legal system. He wanted every Egyptian to know that order had returned, and that the law under his watch would be applied equally to all. But perhaps his most lasting legacy was the transformation of the military. Horemheb professionalized the army, ensuring it remained the strong backbone of the nation. He divided its command between 2 generals, one for the north and one for the south, to prevent any single commander from becoming powerful enough to challenge the pharaoh, a lesson he had learned from his own rise to power. The army was not just for defense, it became a training ground for the next generation of administrators and officials. Horemheb was building a new elite, a meritocracy based on loyalty and competence, drawn from the ranks of the military that had brought him to the throne. Egypt was being reborn, not through gentle reform, but through the iron will and disciplined vision of its soldier king. As his reign neared its end, Horemheb, the pharaoh with no royal children of his own, faced the same dilemma that had brought him to power: succession. He was determined not to let Egypt fall back into chaos. He had spent his entire rule building a new, stable foundation for the kingdom, and he needed a successor who could carry that work forward. True to his background, he looked to the army. He chose his most trusted vizier and fellow general, a man named Pharaoh. Like Horemheb, Pharaoh was a career military officer from the Nile Delta, not of royal blood. He was a seasoned leader, a proven administrator, and utterly loyal. Horemheb officially designated Pharaoh as his heir, granting him the title of hereditary prince. This was a calculated and brilliant move. Horemheb was establishing a new precedent. The throne could be passed not just by blood, but by merit and military might. He was ensuring that the new Egypt he had forged would be led by another strongman in his own image. Upon Horemheb's death, Pharaoh ascended to the throne, taking the royal name Ramesses I. This act founded the 19th Dynasty, one of the most powerful and celebrated dynasties in all of Egyptian history. Ramesses I's son was Seti I, and his grandson was the legendary Ramesses II, also known as Ramesses the Great, the golden age of the Ramesside period. An era of unprecedented power, wealth, and monumental building was Horemheb's ultimate legacy. The stability he created, the institutions he reformed, and the dynasty he founded laid the groundwork for Egypt's final great flourish of imperial glory. Horemheb, the commoner who became king, the general who erased history to save it, remains one of Egypt's most fascinating and important rulers. Though he tried to wipe others from memory, he secured his own place in eternity, not as a forgotten footnote, but as the architect of a new age. He was the restorer, the lawgiver, the founder of a dynasty. He was the forgotten king who saved Egypt. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the past. If you enjoyed this story and want to uncover more hidden histories, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. Let me know in the comments which historical figure you'd like to see covered next. Until next time, stay curious.